hey, if you look up Jem's Art Studio, they have this beautiful Ukrainian sunflower. It's absolutely worth checking out. All the profits are going to go to help Ukrainian charity, so please check it out. It'll be great. All the links will be below in the description and probably here in the picture. But yeah, go help them out. Ukrainians are going through hell right now.
This Organized Chaos video is brought to you by Jem's Art Studio. Jem's Art Studio is an online store that allows access to prints that you can use for most anything, obviously as just a picture, or as a wallpaper, or as a bookmark, or anything you can think of. You can find Jem's Art Studio at etsy.com/shop/Jem's Art Studio. This video is also brought to you by viewers like you. Thank you.
Hey, you might notice I'm doing a couple videos in a row with this shirt on. I'm getting a couple of these out. I'm actually essentially working kind of like 48 hours this week, so I'm going to be exhausted, so I'm trying to get kind of caught up a bit. But of course, something new comes up, I'll record a fresh one for that. That being said, yeah. So, like, the Jimmy Dore videos do well. And it occurs... Well, it doesn't occur to me. I've been suggested I should learn a bit and watch Jackman Huckleberry, or whatever his name is, The Dive. And as we all know, a dive is usually either when you take money to fail at something, or when just something skyrockets down in quality. So Jackman Huckleberry has a channel called The Dive. So obviously it's one of those two. No, he just comes off as a young and maybe more obnoxious Jimmy Dore. I've not seen him directly. I've seen his debates. He is awful. But we're going to go ahead and watch one of these. He's at 50,000 subscribers. He recently got banned off Twitch for misinformation about Ukraine. We'll have to see what YouTube does, because actually YouTube AdSense sent me a thing talking about how they're changing their policy so they can start demonetizing you if you do misinformation about the Russia-Ukraine war. None of my stuff's been impacted because I research my stuff, at least somewhat, and I'm trying to get it out as accurate as possible. But like guys like Jimmy Dore and Jackman Huckleberry here, they're awful. So what videos? I don't even know what video we're going to watch. 50,000 subscribers. He's not, I guess he's twice my size, so that's something. I know a couple of these videos have gotten huge view numbers. Freaking 31,000 18 hours ago. 24,000 a day. Yeah, he's getting huge numbers, and he is awful. God damn it. I'm not even sure how much. These are thankfully short. Ukraine guilty of war crime. Ukraine? NATO enters Ukraine? I've not heard anything about NATO entering Ukraine. Okay, let's dive into this.
British SAS soldiers are training troops on Ukrainian territory. This is the first report of a NATO member having a military presence in Ukraine since Russia invaded, and it could risk provoking Moscow. Is it possible that the US will basically say, who gives an F? We're going to go into Ukraine and train them because this is easier? It is possible.
Okay, that was just a teaser. I think we're going to have to do some research on this one.
We all know that everything that is going on in Ukraine will be lining the pockets of shareholders of the arms industry. The arms industry is going to come out on top.
Well, yeah, they always come out on top. Congratulations, the arms industry makes money in war, and they make money out of war. They make money, period.
We know Ukraine is going to lose. We know Russia is...
We know Ukraine's going to lose. They're doing all right. They're pushing back. Ukraine needs to push back. They need to reclaim... honestly, the perfect solution, the perfect end to this is Ukraine pushes back Russia. They take back the Donbass region, and they take back Crimea. And then we can draw lines there. That's the perfect end to this right now. Ukraine is going to lose. Ukraine is going to lose based on what? They're actually doing amazingly well, unless Putin decides to do chemical or nuclear.
is going to reign victorious when it comes to the, the battle of military superiority. But who's going to be winning the fiscal battle? Oh, that Russia's economy is strong, but when it comes to the U.S., who's really winning? Someone has to win, right? Yes, as always, it is the arms industry. The arms industry is going to win. Steven, thank you for the super chat. Put the Russian coat of arms on it. That'd be base too.
Oh, God, this guy is cringe as fuck. Oh, my God, we're a minute in. And he had the teaser. Oh, God, this is going to be bad.
Let's take a look at this. It's really interesting, though, when you begin to dive into how much the arms industry is really dictating what is going on and how much they are lining their own pockets when it comes to controlling the legislation coming out of Washington, D.C. surrounding.
You are aware Russia invaded Ukraine, right? Are you talking about the Russian arms industry that did this? Because Russia invaded.
These arms shipments to Ukraine, no matter how insane they might be, okay?
Well, yeah, they're getting invaded, so they're getting defense. Listen, I don't like the arms industry either. But, yeah, Ukraine got invaded by Putin. If you don't want the arms industry to do well, tell Putin not to fucking invade his neighbors.
U.S. News reports Pentagon asks top 8 U.S. weapons makers to meet on Ukraine. So the Pentagon's like, yes.
Yeah, the Pentagon wants to talk to them because we're selling weapons to Ukraine. That's yes. I'm confused. What's the conspiracy here? Yes. They're going to talk to weapons makers because they're going to sell weapons to Ukraine. That's yes.
Yes, let's get around. Come one, come all. Let's get around. How are we going to line our own pockets with the profits of arms produced or sold during this whole Ukraine crisis? Let's literally squeeze this. It's got to be coming into an end soon. Russia's saying they want to end this by May 9th. How are we going to squeeze every last penny out of this conflict? Let's gather around, okay? The Pentagon will host leaders from the top 8 U.S. weapons manufacturers on Wednesday to discuss the industry's capacity to meet Ukraine's weapons needs if the war with.
I'm sorry. I actually don't have much to say. I just need him to shut up for a second. He's talking about this big conspiracy. Yeah, we're selling arms to Ukraine because they're at war and we are allies. I mean, listen, man, arms industries have been up to seedy shit for like ever. And you found the one thing where it's like, yeah, that's logical. Jesus Christ, dude.
With Russia lasts years. 2 people familiar with the meeting said on Tuesday. Demand for weapons has shot up after Russia's invasion of February 24th.
Okay. Let me just fucking look this up, because he's probably going to fuck it up. Okay. Does he have a link? He should have a link if he's going to be citing this source. It looked like it's Reuters. Yep. No links. Cool, man. The Pentagon will host leaders from the top 8 U.S. weapons manufacturers on Wednesday to discuss the industry's capacity to meet Ukraine's weapons needs at the war with Russia last years. 2 people familiar with the meeting said on Tuesday. Yeah. They're just making sure we can keep on giving them weapons if it goes into long term. Okay, yeah, no, this seems like standard shit. I mean, as much as I hate the U.S. military war machine, this seems pretty expected when one of our allies is being attacked.
Spurred U.S. and allied weapons transfers to Ukraine. Resupplying as well as planning for a longer war is expected to be discussed at the meeting, the sources told Reuters on condition of anonymity. Now, let me just tell you why this is insane, if it's not clear to you already. The weapons that the U.S. and the West are sending to Ukraine are in many cases not usable by the Ukrainian military, meaning they either A, don't know how to use the weapons and the armaments that are being sent to them. They're literally not trained on how to use them, which we got a caveat to that bit in a second. Or number 2, the arms literally are not capable to be used with current Ukrainian military infrastructure and supplies, or they are just not built for Ukrainian terrain. They're not built to go over these small bridges. They're not built to go through the type of weather and terrain that Ukraine is currently facing. So,
oh my God. Okay, so we got a lot to break down. He's saying Ukraine can't use what we're selling them. Why would they buy them then? That makes no sense. Okay, but we had a list on here. Let's see. All right, the White House said last week it provided $1.7 billion in security assistance to Ukraine since the invasion, including 5,000 javelins and 1,400 stingers. I mean, that'd be a lot of money. Can we get a picture? That's what I thought. It's like a big old bazooka. I don't know why Ukraine couldn't use that. Javelins are pretty epic. So essentially, you get like $1 million tank, and then you get like an 80,000 javelin missile. Shoot the javelin at the tank, and that $1 million tank's out of commission. What about stingers? I don't see how Ukraine couldn't use that. So it can be used the same way. A little launcher. Okay. So the stuff they talk about in that article is stuff Ukraine can 100% use. Do you have a source saying they can't figure out how to use a missile launcher that goes on your shoulder?
these are two of the major issues. But why is the U.S. still sending hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars worth of arms and heavy weaponry to Ukraine? Well, the
Because they're our allies and they're at war. That happens.
answer is quite simple. If you send old weapons to Ukraine that no one's using and no one plans to use, and they're going to expire in a year or two, that gives these Western nations the justification to then go to their arms industry donors and say, hey, you guys, look, midterms are rolling up. I could use some support. And I think I got what you might be looking for. We just dumped all of our old weapons to Ukraine. If you get me elected, we'll be sure to use that as justification to buy a whole lot more arms from you.
Okay. What does it have to do with Ukraine, though? Yes, American politics are corrupt. Congratulations, you just discovered the thing everybody in the fucking universe knows. The most obvious fact in the world. U.S. politicians are corrupt. Wow. Thank you, Sherlock fucking Holmes. What does it have to do with Ukraine?
A lot more. So that's what they're doing. The arms industry comes out on top. U.S. politicians come out on top. And it's all for nothing, because on top of Ukraine having these difficulties with the arms being sent and their old weapons, they don't know how to use them. They're not.
I would like a source, dude. What's your source that they can't use these? Because everything I saw, they talk about them selling to them. They could definitely use that shit. Are you serious? Here, I wonder if we have footage.
Some of the firepower flow to Ukraine includes the American-made anti-tank weapon known as the Javelin. CBS's David Martin.
This was unimaginable. Outgunned and outmanned Ukrainians stopping a Russian armored column in its tracks. U.S. officials estimate the Ukrainians have destroyed several hundred armored vehicles, which are the heart of Russian military power.
The Russian army...
You're right, they can't use our weapons. They've been taking out those tanks with, they have a couple of slingshots, a couple of handguns. That's how they took out those tanks. Are you serious, man?
Oh, they're not even capable of really using them.
Fuck. We just saw the footage.
We also know that Russia is destroying all Western arms that are sent into the country that pose any sort of serious threat to Russian forces.
Source? Dude, look at all these fucking sources. He has so many sources for his research, like his Patreon, his PayPal, his Venmo, his YouTube. All his links for his sources that aren't fucking here. What we know is that we're selling them javelins and stingers, and what we also know is that javelins are currently blowing up Russian tanks. So what is your evidence that Ukrainians don't know how to use these weapons? And also, what's your evidence that the Russians are destroying these weapons so they aren't even getting to them? What is your evidence on any of this fucking shit?
Okay, so let's take a little bit of a deeper look here. The U.S. has announced that they are giving $800 million more in military aid, adds heavy weapons to Ukraine. So that's the big story coming out of D.C. right now. Ukraine's military gets more aircraft and parts to repair other aircraft, Pentagon says. So that's the other big addition to the story here. And according to the Department of Defense, John Kirby gave a answer at a press briefing on the 18th yesterday and said,
Jesus Christ, he might be dumber. Well, that's the thing. I don't know if Jimmy Dore is dumb. I think he's just corrupt. This guy's just kind of fucking dumb and probably corrupt as well. Like, he's not even misrepresenting articles. He's reading the articles and then just going off on some side tangent. Oh, they can't even use the weapons. Based on what? Based on what?
We want to give the Ukrainians every bit of advantage that we can. They specifically ask for artillery support, and we answered that with this recent drawdown package that was just authorized on the 13th. So that was Wednesday of last week, and it's 18 howitzers, 40,000 rounds of artillery, 155 artillery that will go with the howitzers, okay? So before we go any further into this, I just want to be very upfront and clear and honest with you guys that this really is, just another walk in the park for the Russians, because the Russians have destroyed so many armaments and
Yes, it's a walk in the park. So much of a walk in the park. It is so much of a walk in the park that they had to withdraw from Kyiv just to fortify the Donbass. It is so easy for them. They are just crushing it because their whole goal, as you all know, I'm going to tell you guys, brilliant military strategy, okay? Brilliant military strategy. There's this landmass. You want to conquer it, okay? Can I maybe even bring up some artwork? Okay, are you guys ready? I'm going to impart some brilliant military strategy on you. Okay, let's say you're a country over here, and you want to invade this country that's like over here-ish. We have this big old country over here-ish. I gotta be careful how I draw this. I don't want to actually do a dick pic. But anyways, what your main plan is gonna be is to surge into the country as deep as you can. Just get as far in there as fucking possible. And then, just get in there as far as you can. And then, once you get in there as far as you can, you want to go ahead and withdraw. And then just end up kind of over in this area. That's brilliant military strategy. You surge in as far as you can, and then you withdraw to this area. That's how you conquer a country. Is that literally his fucking argument? That's the dumbest shit I've ever seen in my life. Alright, we're getting back to it.
drones and tanks and radar, and anti-missile defense systems of the Ukrainian military. I'll just put it in perspective for you here. This was published by TASS on April 11th, so over a week ago now. This is what they had to say. Overall, the following targets have been destroyed since the beginning of the special military operation. 129 aircraft, 99 helicopters, 243 S-300s, BUK-M1, and OSA, AKM surface-to-air missile systems, 441 unmanned aerial vehicles, 2,079 tanks and other combat armored vehicles, 239 multiple launch rocket systems, 909 field artillery guns and mortars, and also 2,003 special military motor vehicles. Okay, but it gets even more damning for...
What's the source on this? What website is this? Russian news agency. Are we serious? So I'm assuming if he looks up anything from Ukraine, oh, Ukraine's lying. But anything from Russia, I'm sure is fucking to be trusted. No. TASS is the largest Russian news agency and one of the largest news agencies worldwide. TASS is registered as a federal state unitary enterprise owned by the Russian government. This isn't even corporate news. This is fucking straight Russian news. Are you serious?
Military operation. 129 aircraft.
Can you try not to be fucking biased at all? Oh, Jesus Christ.
99 helicopters, 243 S-300s, BUK-M1, and OSA, AKM surface-to-air missile systems, 441 unmanned aerial vehicles, 2,079 tanks and other combat armored vehicles, 239 multiple launch rocket systems, 909 field artillery guns and mortars, and also 2,003 special military motor vehicles. Okay, but...
And as we all know, the Russian government won't have any motivation to lie about any of this, because why would they? Jesus Christ, man. Can you give me a source that isn't fucking owned by Russia?
It gets even more damning for the Ukrainians once you see what happened next. So,
Russians fell back to the Donbass. They tried to take the capital. It didn't work, and now they're falling back. Ukrainians are actually doing okay, thankfully.
We learned that, I want to add this in too. We've learned that these weapons that the U.S. and the U.K. and Western powers are sending to Ukraine literally take weeks and weeks and weeks of basic combat training to even begin to understand and use. For field...
Yes, but we just watched video of them blowing up tanks. You'd be shocked how quickly you can learn something when it's necessary. When it's necessary for your survival, you learn shit quick.
Artillery firefinder radar operator. So a radar operator that operates in unison with all the other, military and armament supplies that are being sent by the West, because these are complex systems that operate in unison. Radar firefinders are a big part of it because they help identify where munitions are being shot from, and where where your military has to target its launches to. Okay, so these new radar firefighters that the U.S. is sending over, according to the National Guard U.S. Army website, says job training for a field artillery firefinder radar operator requires 10 weeks of basic combat training and 10 weeks of advanced individual training with on-the-job instruction. Part of this time is spent in the classroom and part takes place on firefinder equipment. So,
yeah, I'm sure they do that formal training to make sure you know all the ins and outs, to make sure you really know it. But I'm willing to bet you could learn it a lot faster if it was necessary. It's a little it's a big old thing you throw on your shoulder that fires a missile. You can figure that shit out.
So, I mean, this is just insane. The West is sending over these arms that they're not trained to use, and what are they?
But they're using them. They're using them. Holy shit.
Doing? What is the West promising now? They're saying British SAS soldiers are training troops on Ukrainian territory. This is
what he has. Daily Mail I looked up, and that is another one like Gray Zone that actually cannot be quoted by Wikipedia unless you have a secondary source, which means you can't quote it. So yeah, it looks like we might have some soldiers there training. Yeah, they're training Ukrainian soldiers. I wish I could find better sources, but look at that. It looks like they're training Ukrainian soldiers in Kiev now that the Russians have withdrawn. Notice how they're winning by withdrawing. You see, this is interesting because I'm kind of have mixed feelings about it. Because number one, it's good. Like, I don't know why they would do this and not publicly. Like, I would make it very vocal. Hey, there are going to be British troops in Ukrainian territory. Make it very clear. So that way, if Putin attacks over there and kills one of those troops, we know we're in World War III. That's the biggest thing. I would say he needs to make this way more public. Because, yeah, my stance on this is quickly becoming, I don't want World War III, but if Putin's dedicated towards it, let's not hide from it. Because if he's dedicated towards it, we're going to get it. But yeah, hopefully he doesn't want World War III. And he sees this story and doesn't go there.
This is huge. Ukrainian commanders told the Times that soldiers from Britain's Special Air Service are training Ukrainian troops in Kiev on how to use anti-tank weapons provided by London. So there are there are British Special Air Service members who are training Ukrainian commanders in Kiev on how to use these anti-tank weapons, these anti-tank defense systems in Kiev, in Ukraine, on Ukrainian territory. There are British soldiers there training Ukrainians on how to use these. According to the accounts of the commanders, the British troops arrived in Kiev about 2 weeks ago to begin the training on the next generation light anti-tank weapons known as NLAWs. The UK started sending NLAWs to Ukraine shortly after Russia invaded on February 24th. Okay, so that is absolutely insane. The revelation of the SAS training mission is the first report of a NATO member having a military presence in Ukraine since Russia invaded, and it could risk provoking Moscow. Okay, so what's interesting about this story right here is that we are also learning that the United States is planning on training Ukrainians on howitzers in the coming days. The United States is saying that they are going to be doing this training outside of Ukrainian territory, but given the fact that there are British SAS members in Kiev training Ukrainian commanders on these anti-tank weapons, is it possible that the U.S. will basically say, who gives an F? We're going to go into Ukraine and train them because this is easier?
Yeah, maybe they will. And you know what? They won't be at risk if Putin wasn't committing a war crime by invading Ukraine. They would not be at risk.
It is possible. I mean,
that's the thing these guys keep on seeming to forget. Like, Ukraine is being invaded right now. Do you want them to roll over? Because it really seems like they just want them to roll over.
Let's just think about the logistics of this. I showed you that diagram, which explained that it takes 10 weeks for an individual to be trained on.
To be properly trained, sure. But to learn it, if you need to survive, you could probably learn it pretty fucking quick.
These systems that the U.S. is sending in. So what? Are they going to train Ukrainians outside of Ukraine for, 6 weeks, 7 weeks? Maybe they can speed the process up and then send those Ukrainians in to train other Ukrainian battalions and regiments for another 6 to 7 weeks. I mean, that's just
probably something like that. Yeah, I'm sure they'll give them the quick treatment, and yeah, that's how that would work.
It's insane. The war will be over by then, hopefully, if the Russians, achieve what they want.
No, the war will be over by then, hopefully, if Ukraine can push Russia out of the Donbass and fucking Crimea. That'd be nice. You know what? Peace is good, but Russia honestly needs to lose. This is unacceptable action by Putin. I don't even want to say Russia needs to lose. Putin needs to lose. Putin needs to lose this war.
That's way too much time. They will not be able to achieve what they need to achieve in that much time. It will surely pass. So is it possible that the U.S. sends troops into Ukraine, risking further escalation to train Ukrainians on these troops on the ground in Ukrainian territory? I do think that's a possibility, unfortunately, even though Joe Biden has been very adamant.
Well, you know what? Their lives won't be at risk if Putin wasn't invading.
Kind of adamant, I'll say. He's actually not been. He's flipped multiple times as to whether or not we'll be sending U.S. troops into Ukraine. But who knows? Who knows? All I do know is that Russia is finding all of these armaments and they're destroying them as quickly as they can. Russia is now using their newest Kinzhal hypersonic missiles to bombard Ukraine. Russian Defense Ministry said Russia's newest air-to-ground missile was used to destroy an arms depot in western Ivano-Frankivsk Oblast. So we covered this on the show the night it went down. This is the first time this type of missile was used in Ukraine. So the Kiev Independent, the most pro-Ukraine, paper media outlet out there, is alleging that they're using hypersonic missiles to blow up arms depots. I don't know if that's true. In fact, actually, I'm reading this right now. Ukraine hasn't been able to confirm the type of missile, but unnamed U.S. officials told CNN that Russia has indeed launched hypersonic missiles against Ukraine. We don't know if that's true. The U.S. definitely has radars that would be able to see this sort of stuff, but we don't know. I mean, the fact that they're saying it's unnamed people.
Yeah, and yet you wholeheartedly take the Russian story about the stuff that's been destroyed, just without doubt. Oh yeah, this is definite news.
Saying this, the fact that they can't confirm this leads me to believe maybe that's not true. We do know that they have hit an arms depot. We do know.
Well, it tells me the Ukrainian thing is actually trying to be honest. That's what that tells me.
That these hypersonic missiles could be used by Russia, and not even the U.S. Patriot batteries can stop them. They're unstoppable missiles. And this is video showing a strike in Dnipro, Ukraine. Video could
God, he's like fanboying over Russia. It's pretty cringe.
suggest this was another arms depot that was hit. Take a look at this. Huge explosion there. Some of these explosions are reporting to have lasted at least 30 seconds, which definitely indicates that arms depots are being hit. And we do know they're being hit. Russian missiles are destroying major consignments of weapons arriving in Ukraine.
He's back at that TASS website. Jesus Christ, dude. You're getting all your shit from Russian news, which we know is being... Like, that webpage he's looking at is owned by the fucking Russian government. Ugh.
From the US and EU, according to Russia, according to the TASS, Russian news agency, the Russian aerospace forces have destroyed a logistics center with major consignments of foreign weapons that arrived in Ukraine in the past 6 days from the US and European countries. Russian Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Konashenkov reported on Monday. So these are the decision-making centers that Putin was referring to when he said, you know, we're not going to hold back anymore. We are going to begin targeting the decision-making centers in Ukraine. Konashenkov said that in the morning, high-precision airborne missiles of the Russian aerospace forces delivered a strike on the 124th Joint Logistics Support Center of the Ukrainian Troops Logistic Forces Command in the area of Lviv. Quote, the logistics center and large consignments of foreign weapons that arrived in Ukraine over the past 6 days from the U.S. and European countries were destroyed. All right, so to dig a little bit deeper here and show you what's really going on, these are Russian cruise missiles hitting targets in Lviv, presumably at this arms depot. Take a look at this clip right here. Huge explosions. Huge explosions. Yep. There you go. Another huge explosion. So they're targeting these arms depots, right? Which, again, just shows us how ludicrous the idea of sending $800 million worth of weapons and new armaments after...
But Russia is now withdrawing, and Ukraine keeps on buying it. So I assume they're finding it useful for some reason. Otherwise, why if they just keep on destroying it, why would Ukraine waste money even taking it? They're wasting time and money just taking it. They should just focus on defending themselves. But they're taking it, which tells me they're still fucking useful.
After we've already sent so many to Ukraine... I mean, it's an insane idea. We know these things are going to be blown up by the Russians. We know they're already doing this.
Yeah, of course some are going to get blown up. We've sent, like over a couple $1 billion worth of weapons to them. You think 2 or 3 buildings hold all that? Are you serious?
We know that Ukrainians aren't even trained to use these armaments.
But they're using them. We've seen video. On this video, I've run through video of them using it. They are using it.
They aren't trained to use them. It'll take weeks and weeks and weeks for them to be trained, and then...
Well, they're figuring it out.
And those people who are going to be trained have to go in to Ukraine. If it's U.S., soldiers training these Ukrainians outside of Ukrainian territory, these Ukrainians are going to have to then go into Ukrainian territory and train other Ukrainians. The whole thing is a shit show. It makes no sense. Unless, of course, you are just trying to line the pockets of shareholders of the arms industry. Then, of course, it makes total perfect sense. War is a racket still. Thanks for watching.
Yes, war is a racket. But if you don't want a war, maybe you shouldn't be supporting Putin, which you clearly are. And I'm sure a commenter will be like, oh, he's said bad things about Putin before. Yeah, but he's getting... Like, how many stories on there did he post that were legit just Russian-owned? He's legit reporting Russian propaganda as news. He is... God, I thought Jimmy Dore was the division of RT in the United States. This guy blows Jimmy Dore out of the water. Oh my God, he is just repeating Russian shit. That is awful. He is useless. Just absolutely useless.
They think order and chaos are somehow opposites and try to control what won't be.
I used to fuck guys like you in prison.